Well, Beverly, I think he realised that it was not going to achieve anything by attacking NATO. NATO is essentially keeping Ukraine's war effort alive. Without NATO and the supply of their weapons, Ukraine would be in deep trouble militarily. And I think he realised that he needs to work with NATO rather than to attack them. So his tone today is much more conciliatory, and he's actually accepted the fact that Ukraine can't join NATO while there's a war going on. That's something that this time yesterday he was not accepting.
Yeah. He has been given those security guarantees, more defence support. What is this going to look like?
What it will look like is that they have established this NATO-Ukraine Council. Essentially, the most important aspect of that is that at any point, Volodymyr Zelensky can trigger a meeting, if you like, an emergency meeting of that council. They're having their first meeting right now while we're speaking, and that essentially has the leaders of the NATO countries and Volodymyr Zelensky. So in effect, they are a de facto member of NATO now. And those emergency meetings would be, should Ukraine be in military trouble and need urgent military assistance, they can trigger a meeting, which can be held within hours. It's a bit like a sort of a Cobra committee in London or a National Security Committee meeting in Canberra. So that's quite important. Australia's pledged that extra 30 Bushmasters, as you mentioned. France yesterday pledged long-range missiles. The UK did the same thing recently. So, and there's now 12 NATO countries have pledged training for F-16 jets pilots. So there is a lot more aid coming out of this meeting, and a real sense that this is a crucial time now for the war.
Indeed. And Jens Stoltenberg also said, John, that the biggest risk was Putin winning, who tonight very quickly warned that offering Ukraine those sorts of assurances would be a dangerous mistake. It's hard to see Putin overall being too much troubled by what he's seeing, at least publicly. Well,
I mean, Vladimir Putin actually, and I think yesterday when Volodymyr Zelensky attacked NATO preemptively on Twitter by saying that by not putting a time frame on when we become members, but essentially waiting till the war is over, empowers Russia. It gives Russia the ability and, in fact, the motivation to continue this war going. So I think that the problem, for NATO and for Ukraine is that Vladimir Putin will be sitting in Moscow realising that he can in fact control the timing of the admission of Ukraine to NATO. While NATO's been effectively green-lighted here at this conference in Vilnius, it's not until the war's over, which means that there is a real motivation for Russia just to drag this on and on and on, even in a scaled-down form, knowing that as long as there's a war, Ukraine can't join NATO, which of course is the big enemy of Vladimir Putin. So it's far from an ideal situation.
Yeah. John, you talked about the Bushmasters, which we know there have been additional Bushmasters promised to Ukraine. Will the Prime Minister come under more pressure to offer other support to Ukraine?
Look, I think that what they really want, which Australia has been reluctant to give, sure, the Bushmasters and the vehicles are important, but what the Ukrainians really want, and in fact Volodymyr Zelensky mentioned it an hour or so ago in his press conference, is air support. That's the difference between the two armies at the moment. Russia has aerial supremacy, without question. And that's the reason the counteroffensive is bogged down, because Ukraine can't really make too many achievements on land because the Russians are fortified. It's about a 1,200-kilometre front line all the way down the border of Ukraine and Russia. It's a huge front line, and Russia has had months and months to fortify it. If you look at those satellite pictures, the trenches are heavy, there's landmines, there's hidden trenches, there's booby traps, there's everything. So essentially there can't be a land attack. So Ukraine really needs that air defence. That's why Ukraine was delighted yesterday when Emmanuel Macron offered them these new Scalp long-range missiles, which have a range of about 250 kilometres, which will allow Ukraine to hit deep into occupied territory, Russian military sites, and deep into Ukraine, and the cluster bombs that Volodymyr Zelensky mentioned today, which the US has given. He singled them out because, as he said, the Russians have got them and they're using them. We need them as well. So this meeting, apart from coming up with that NATO light status, if you like, has certainly reinforced some military capability for Ukraine.
Yeah. John, much appreciate the update tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.